Hello makers and welcome to Mixed Media Masters. It's good to have you here. By the way, if you like abstract art creation, design, materials, anything having to do with art creation, this might be a really fun place for you to hang out. Feel free to hit that subscribe button down below, and we're here every week for you. Now this week we're going to be talking about creating a new 1-hour masterpiece, and we're going to be working with some very basic materials, keeping it really simple but interesting. And those simple materials are simply going to be the sheet of paper I have here in front of me, which is a sheet of 18 by 24 inch watercolor paper. And I'm going to be working with some squares of black paper. I have 12 inch by 12 inch black paper right here. And we're going to do something, a study in black and white, if you will, that's going to allow us to create something that's easy to make, but also has a really deep impact if we pull it together right. So let's see how we can do this. Now, one of the things I want to be able to think about initially is just, I don't have any long sheets of black paper that I can use here. So I'm going to kind of join these guys together on a temporary basis. I'm going to flip these over. By the way, this paper is a shiny side as well as a less shiny side. And I don't want the shiny side to be popping up. So I'm just going to come along here and again, just use some Scotch magic tape here to hold these guys together. Doesn't have to be a master job, just something that's going to be just allow us to kind of work with these pieces of paper as if it were one big sheet of black. Now I can already see how it interacts with the white paper underneath it. And again, one of the real secrets of a project like this is the contrast between the black and the white to really pop things out. And what I'm thinking here is I'd like to have kind of a black shape that is really the center, almost like a spine that goes down through the paper, and then on each side of the spine, if you will, I also want to be able to use black, but it's going to be a little bit bigger, kind of like almost like protecting or isolating the spine. I know this is what I'm seeing in here. It's a little harder to describe, but one of the first things I want to be able to do is think about what this spine is going to look like. And by the way, I can work with my favorite pair of scissors, which are these poultry shears here. They're great for everything craft-wise. One of the big things is that when you pick them up and put them down, which you do a million times, it doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to find the right holes to put your fingers into. So one of the reasons I like those. Also, using a rotary cutter is a possibility here, but since we're not creating really straight lines here, I'm going to go with the scissors and create something a little bit more organic, as it were. And what I'm thinking here is initially I want to be able to create a kind of a spine. It's not going to be really wide, but let me come into my paper here and I want to be able to create something that's got a bit of a, I don't know, just an interesting shape. I'm going to start by creating kind of a curved line on this side. We'll bring it in. It doesn't have to be absurd curved, but just subtle enough that it's interesting. And I'll bring it up later like that. There we go. All right, and let me cut the other part of this out. And again, I'm just kind of going to make this, I don't know, about kind of a couple inches wide, maybe at the max. No, kind of just create something that's going to be an interesting shape to be able to put on our paper. And you know, sometimes you may approach this a few different times. One of the interesting things about working in abstract art, and I've mentioned it many times on this channel, is that there really is no wrong answer. There are probably better answers, we'll assume that. But when we're talking about creating something that's going to be visually interesting, there's so many different places that we can go to. And that's kind of what we want to think about right here. How do we make this kind of an interesting part of this? Now, again, what I'm visualizing here is something where we kind of have chunks of black and then kind of a little bit where we have thinner pieces of black to let the white through, and then, you know, again, we'll kind of do it like that. So I'm going to start by taking this piece of paper, which I want to have it run as a kind of a column down the center, but I want to chunk it a little bit, and I'm going to start by just kind of rounding the top. So it's just don't want it to be too factory cut, as you will. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to cut off a fairly sizable piece like that. And then I'm going to create a couple really thin pieces, like there's one there, there's another, I'll do 3 of them here. And so now, again, this is going to allow me to kind of create some interesting demarcation between the black and the white that's underneath. I'm going to kind of shove these. And again, I may not worry about them being too perfect, I'm just really eyeballing things right now. Right, but I can kind of create something where we have a kind of a larger piece and then a smaller piece. And let me create another larger piece, which will be kind of next in line here. And then a couple of the thinner pieces. So we'll just make it, again, we want this to be different. And we want it to be able to draw the eye and have the eye feel comfortable with it. So it's, what's interesting about this is that we're creating something that has a little bit of symmetry, and yet it's not symmetrical. It is interesting how abstract art can do all of those things at the same time. Let me create another piece here. And again, I'm just going to kind of chunk it down. You're going to be able to see as this comes together, kind of just the fun demarcation. Let's do 3 in here. Okay. And one of the things, and again, I think it's different for different people. When I'm building anything that's abstract art, and one of the things I'm trying to do is there are rules that you kind of follow in your head as to how things should be. Like, for example, I have 3 pieces there, then 2 pieces there, then 3 pieces there. Should I put 2 pieces here? No. I really kind of want to disrupt that as much as possible. And so I may go 3 again, so we don't end up with a pattern that is predictable or even recognizable in some cases. All right, let me bring that down like that. That looks good. And again, I have a few more. We'll do 3 more down here. Or heck, maybe we even do 4. How about that? Is that crazy? Maybe. We'll see how it works. So again, kind of bring these guys in here like this. And this will be, when you do the final glue up of these things, you get an opportunity to really kind of pull those pieces together. Kind of like that. We'll take this piece here. I'll bring it down. These are going to be a lot tighter than they currently are as well. So let me do 2 more here. Okay, so there's 2 more pieces there. And then I think I will go fairly sizable here. And again, I can also come back in here and I can change things. Maybe I want to taper this off a little bit more at the bottom when it comes into play. So I might actually do that. Let me just take my scissors and just kind of create a bit more of a taper down here. There we go. So it looks like it's kind of concluding. And I'll create a couple more of those thin pieces that might go down here at the bottom. And I can, of course, make those so that they're within the same realm of thickness. There we go. I'm going to have one last piece that is going to kind of go in a little bit later, only simply because once we start gluing things up, it's going to tighten up a bit. And I'll just say that this last piece is going to be kind of this thing that kind of fits here. I'll just put it aside. Now again, everything at this point is really coming in, and we're identifying just the pieces, the shapes, and getting a sense. So what I might decide to do is, let's curve this a little bit. I'm going to bring these guys a little off center here. Let's bring them over here a little bit more. And then maybe we start to curve back over here to the left-hand side, and we just create something that's going to be a little bit more interesting. That's what we're trying to do. Now, once we have the center in place, it's really a matter of figuring out what flanks it. What I'd like to do is not certainly as tall. I want the centerpiece to run from the top of my paper all the way to the bottom, but I'm thinking here we'll kind of flank it with other black pieces. So let me go back into my big old piece of paper here, and let me chunk these. I'm going to make these about, 3 to 4 inches across. I think that will work. And again, I'm going to try to keep the cutting lines as organic as possible as opposed to straight milled lines. There we go. And I'm going to do something very similar with these pieces. Let me actually I'll take this apart, make it easier to work with. And I'm going to say, let's bring this in here. And we'll have a chunk that's kind of the top of this. We'll say it starts right about there. And then we'll do a little bit of space, and then maybe a bigger chunk. So again, we're going to take advantage of the white space right there, and maybe this is going to be a less big chunk right there, and maybe this, let me get my tape off of there, it's going to be kind of a big chunk down there. Now what I might do also is I kind of, figure out the interrelationship, is think about how we can kind of work these pieces together, right? And I want to be able to create an interrelationship between the spine in the middle, if you will, and the pieces flanking it. So we have something. And I can also come in here and say, you know what, maybe I can kind of arc this a little bit. I can come in here, and again, before I do any kind of gluing up, is I can start to trim my pieces a little bit just so they have a better fit with their neighbors, okay? So there's a lot of consideration that can go into here, but for the most part, I might actually just, that may be about the length of what we're dealing with here. And I can do the same thing on the other side. You come in here, and again, I don't want it to be, I don't want to match it on the side, so I'll make this one a little bit bigger here. And maybe this is the one that's a little bit thinner on this side. And I'll go in there like that. And then I'm gonna do 5 shapes as opposed to 4 shapes. Again, I want to kind of knock down the symmetry whenever I can, just to keep things interesting. And if I need to add an additional piece, I can do that as well. I have more black paper. That will work for me. I'll bring it down like that. Okay. Now again, the objective overall is to create something that's going to be really interesting to look at. Now a lot of this is going to have to take advantage of a glue down, because again, getting the spacing and getting the shaping of things I want. This is really just kind of, if you will, a rough cut. It's an opportunity for me to get an opportunity to test my vision, what I had in my head, and to be able to say, is that going to work? And also, do I want to make sure that I have the same distance from the edge of my paper on both sides, which means maybe I need to slide things over a little bit. I'll maybe recenter it a little bit. But I kind of like where the concept is going. Do I want to round some of these pieces over? Is that something that's going to be necessary? So, things to consider along the way. Now, I want to thank this week's sponsor, which is me. Yeah, that's right. I'm sponsoring this week's video with my Spectiva Studios gallery. Now, for those of you who have been with me for a while, you're familiar with Spectiva Studios because I do talk about it. But it's a place where I take the art we create in this channel and I share it with you. And an opportunity for you to see some of the projects that we're working on here, as well as other projects that I'm working on. And again, the objective of Spectiva Studios has really been the same since the start, which is to create interesting, intriguing, and attractive artwork for people just like you at a nominal price. It's always good to make a little bit of money out of what you're doing, but it's not about making too much money. And so being able to create art that is affordable and something that you can acquire and hang on your wall is really the objective here. So I encourage you to go visit spectivastudios.com, take a peek around. There's lots of different types of artwork because mixed media allows you that flexibility to do a lot of different things. And I'd love your feedback, and I'd love you to have us visit and be part of our family. All right, now we have to get to the hard part. Well, it's not a hard part. It's a time-consuming part, which is going to be the glue down. And because I like you, guess what? I'm not gonna show you the glue down today. I'm gonna stop the camera, spend a little time getting things glued down, short up. But when you come back, which will seem just like a moment for you, you're going to see the final results of this project. All right, welcome back. Now, it hasn't taken too long, maybe about 20 minutes or so of gluing down. But as you can see, one of the things I really wanted to achieve here was to minimize the amount of white space coming between these different sections. And just to give it, again, it's much more pleasing to the eye to have that little sliver of white in there than it is to have huge gaps. And with the flanking pieces, if you will, again, trying to create an interrelationship between the center here as well as the white space in here. It's come together in a nice way. I'm pleased with this project. And again, like any other project, sometimes when you create anything, and a lot of people think abstract art is random art, but like any other kind of art, a lot of it can be planned. And so we might look at something like this and say, okay, if I were to redo this, are there things that I might change in the process? Now, I will share with you a couple of thoughts of again, we're dealing with black and white because the stark contrast can be very interesting. But one of the things that makes a piece like this really work is the introduction of a little bit of color. For example, if I came in here and said, let's put this blue bar right here, it automatically draws the eye to this section right here, right? So, and again, you want to be sparing if you're going to be putting color in here. Either, you don't want to say, okay, let's put a blue bar up there and let's put a, red bar up here. It could work, but the reality is that the eye now is kind of bouncing back and forth between these two sections. But one of the things that might work here, again, just making it interesting, is if you took a couple of different bands of color, kind of stack these guys in here like this, and put it like that, then this whole section really becomes the draw of the eye. And again, it's this idea of how, when I look at this, it's pleasing the colors and the contrast and the shapes working together. Now, what you come up with is what you come up with. What we have here could work very well for us, and I'm going to play around with this a little bit for the most part, but I think this might be the kind of thing that we're going to toss up on the Spectiva Studios gallery for you guys to take a peek at if anybody wants to check this out. I'm going to have a special discount code that goes up with this one as well. So you can get it at a pretty good deal. Anyway, that's all I have for you this week. Again, thanks as always for being here. We drop a video every Friday, and it's our pleasure to be able to share what we're doing here with our growing family. We're growing very rapidly, and I'm very excited about that. So that's what I have. If you'd like to be part of what we're doing, hit that subscribe button down below. If you hit that like, it helps us. It makes YouTube love us, and who doesn't want to be loved, right? Anyway, that's all I have for you this week. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.